Welcome back to Leading Edge, and we turn now to the Democrats. Joining me is the chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party, David Pepper. By way of background, Mr. Pepper is a native Cincinnatian, graduated Yale, earned his law degree there. Yeah, Republican Party chair, Harvard, Democratic Party chair, Yale. Okay, elected to city council. Was it 2001?
2001.
Good Lord. He was just a kid, finished at the top of like 26 candidates, later became a Hamilton County commissioner. Good to have you with us again. As you know, I'm a geek on this stuff, and I watch all the experts when it comes to swing states. Here's what I'm hearing: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, Arizona. And now let's toss in North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas. Longer shots for a Democrat, but in play. Fewer are mentioning Ohio, and yet, David Pepper, ad-wise, Joe Biden has been playing here as though it is a state he can win. Latest polls give the president a narrow lead here, where he won by 8 points 4 years ago. If Biden is to carry Ohio, where are the keys? Are they those traditional Democratic counties that Mr. Trump flipped in 16, or where?
You know, I think it's close enough. It can happen and needs to happen in a number of places. One, we need very strong Democratic turnout. We need big turnout in Toledo and Cleveland. Our core voters need to be inspired. These suburbs that are flipping from red to blue need to flip from red to blue in a big way. That's a lot of women voting. Many of them used to be Republicans. And then in more rural parts of the state, we have to narrow the loss. We have to campaign there. Joe Biden's done that. We've been doing that. So there are three stools. There are three legs of the stool. You got to do well in all three of them in Ohio. You can't just do one. And right now, I think the reason it's close is because we're seeing each of those happen. The question by election day is, do they happen enough to take a state that Trump won by 8 and flip it blue? That would be obviously a huge achievement. By the way, the fact that Trump is spending his final weeks in Ohio, and Trump Jr. and Eric Trump and Ivanka Trump, that's the last thing they would have wanted to be doing. This is a state they would have wanted to be cleared away from, but they aren't, which is good news for Democrats around the country.
They're having to play defense. I get that, David Pepper. Right. Are you satisfied with the Biden campaign's in-person presence here in Ohio? Have you pushed for more on-the-ground encounters by your party here?
We've seen Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. I'm actually, after this event, about an hour, I'll be with Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff. We're excited to have him here. It's a big map. Democrats have a lot of opportunities, as you mentioned: North Carolina, Iowa, Georgia, Texas. So I can't argue with the fact that they're going to those places as well. We feel good about what we've seen. We also, though, I will say, I respect that the Biden campaign has been, frankly, a lot more careful about how they do these events, which has led to smaller crowds and, frankly, not as much travel, because they don't want to actually spread coronavirus. The Trump campaign is doing, 3 or 4 a day? And every time they do it, a few weeks later, we see that COVID cases went up. And in some cases, like Omaha the other day, they abandoned thousands of people at the rally scene. So the Biden campaign, I think, is being a little more careful. And there are many places they can play. So we're just fine with that. I respect the campaign they're running.
Dave Pepper, my guest, the chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party. I just talked with your counterpart in the Ohio Republican Party, pushed her a bit on the real economic story of the Trump administration here in the Buckeye State. Ohio actually lost jobs in the third year of the Trump presidency. Right. But what jobs are coming back to Ohio if Joe Biden is elected?
I mean, if you look at the pattern, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Donald Trump always is saying, if we could only go back to before COVID. Well, Ohio, 2019, before COVID hit, was the worst jobs year in Ohio in a decade. We lost manufacturing, we lost construction, and that's what happens. We've seen this for 30 years. The trickle-down economics, where you give tax breaks at the top and hope it trickles down to everyone else, they just don't work. They also have tax policies that rewarded jobs moving overseas, like happened out of Lordstown in the Youngstown area. So Joe Biden is going to go back to the model that has always worked, which is you start with the middle class, you build a strong middle class, and also as you listen to him, we can bring these manufacturing jobs back, but we have to move to an economy where we're making solar panels, we're making parts of wind turbines. We have to replace some of the old manufacturing jobs that have gone with a new green economy, which again, the Republicans like to attack that. If you look closely, no state will benefit more from a move towards a greener economy than Ohio, because we have so much manufacturing hubs in skills, but you've got to have people who are willing to move in that direction and not simply do what the president does, which is trickle down, trickle down, trickle down. It never works. And it wasn't working in Ohio even before the COVID crisis hit.
David Pepper, as you well know, we've got some rich farmland up here in the northwest quadrant of this state. Farmers seem to line up behind President Trump, even though they've been caught in the crossfire of his trade wars. These are sharp business people. What do you say they're missing?
I don't want to. My guess is they're pulled in different directions. And people vote for a lot of different reasons. But as you said, not only was 19 bad for manufacturing jobs, construction jobs, farm bankruptcy spiked because Donald Trump's trade war by tweet cost Ohio soybean farmers and corn farmers their biggest markets. And so I think what you want is a steady hand in the White House, who of course is tough on our trading partners so America gets treated fairly, but also doesn't do such damaging things that farmers and other exporters lose their business, which is what happened. So you need to go back to someone who's actually brings in experts, leads in a stable way, and doesn't conduct this sort of high wire act where Donald Trump's trade wars and trade discussions that, are so overhyped, over dramatic. He's really cost Ohio farmers here, just like he's cost dairy farmers in Wisconsin. So, my guess is a lot of farmers know that, are looking at that. Trump has tried to bail the problem out by having dollars go to these subsidies.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, people want to sell their goods. People want to sell their beans. They want to sell corn. And we need to get those markets back for them. And you need a stable hand in the White House to do that. That's what Joe Biden will do.
Everything today on a tight schedule. A lot of folks checking in with us in this last weekend before the election. Early voting continues, and of course, the big day on Tuesday. My thanks to David Pepper, Chairman, Ohio Democratic Party, keeping us on the leading edge of his party's efforts to put the Buckeye State back in the blue and Joe Biden in the White House. David, good to see you. Best to your family.
Good to see you.
When I come back, the state's top vote counter right here on Leading Edge.